Okay, it looks like we're good.
Okay. Our regular city council meeting is April 4th, 2020. And let's start with who is
Very strange. You're getting really choppy.
Roll call. Summer.
You got it. We have Mayor Emily Niehaus, City Council Member Kaylin Jones, Assistant City Manager Carly Castle, Moab City Planning Assistant Corey Shirtliff, City Manager Joel Linares, Moab City Council Member Karen Guzman Newton, Finance Director Clint York, Lori Simonson, City Attorney, Mike Duncan, Moab City Council Member, Planning Director Nora Shepard, former Finance Director Rachel Senta, Moab City Council Member Ronnie Darasari, and Moab City Council Member Tawny Knudsen Boyd.
I missed the last part of the roll call. Is it over?
It is. I'm not sure what our internet connection issue is.
Okay. Well, nothing's changed on my end, but please just start giving me a thumbs down if you can't hear me, okay? We are, I'll call this meeting to order. We're in section 4 of our agenda, 4.1. Approval of minutes from February 18, our 2020 special joint city council meeting. Is there a motion?
Oh, I can't even get to there.
Ronnie?
I will just make a note first that I did not attend the February 18th meeting, but it is my understanding that we as a body have been tending to vote on them anyway. Do you guys have a preference if I recuse? I'm getting all my boards confused. I started forget what we were doing here.
Ronnie, there's no need for you to recuse yourself.
Okay, that is fine. I can make a motion, and I'm just also going to note that I earlier on the shared document for March 10th sent Summer a few things. So I can move to approve the minutes of February 18th, March 10th, and March 20th with those changes and whatever else the rest of you might have.
So the motion is to approve minutes from March 10th and March 20th.
And February 18.
And February 18. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tawny. Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Mike, aye.
Complicated. I will go through and roll call for this motion and seconded motion. Mike?
Aye.
Tawny? Tawny?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Ronnie?
I, myself, and me.
Motion passes to approve all 3 sets of minutes. Thank you. On to our reports. Based on internet connection, I'm going to speak slowly and briefly. I attended a water quality board meeting, an association of local governments meeting. I am on a committee, a subcommittee with GOED, Governor's Office of Economic Development for State and Local Resources. We've met a few times. I've attended 2 ULCT board meetings. We as a council have had some special meetings that I'm not sure we have to report on. And I wanted to report a little more specifically from the meetings that I've attended with the league, with ULCT. Can I get a thumbs up? Do I sound okay? I think I've got internet anxiety here. Okay. Just some ideas and thoughts for consideration. That we're going to start hearing some new terms like reactivate and new normal. And that is just where we are with COVID in the state of Utah. We are looking at a release of like 2.0 of the Utah Leads Together plan, and that's from the governor. The special session that the legislators are about to enter into a legislative session, they have 21 bills introduced. And the league in particular is tracking all of those bills as they're being introduced. Some just came out today. The two that I think, well, the 2 or 3 that are really important for us on a local and rural level is the way in which the CARES Act distributes funds to small cities like us. The league has been advocating on our behalf to spread to equally distribute among cities and towns. However, the Treasury Department, they're still awaiting counsel from the Treasury Department and guidance. The other thing is that it's becoming very clear that there's this health department versus electeds battle that's going on. From the league's perspective, it's a little complicated. So what we have with our local health department and other health districts around the state is that the boards that guide the departments are largely made up of county representatives. And so we have had such good coordination with our health department that we haven't thought, gosh, it would be really nice if we had somebody from the city serving on the Board of Health for our local health department. However, other communities are actually seeing cities left out of the conversation with the health department. So one thing that the league is planning to do is advocate for a bigger voice for cities with their local health department. For us, because we've had such a good relationship and, such good coordination and collaboration with our health department and our county, that's less of an issue for us. But there is a big push to consider taking some of that power away from local health departments. And the league is going to do what they can to not let that happen and advocate on behalf again of cities and towns. And then the only other thing that's being talked about too is that with the stimulus packages that there might be this stimulus number 4 that might come out that might distribute more funds specifically to cities and towns. So if the original funding that came out, if we're not able to get to access some of that, there may be future stimulus money available. So that's like really big picture stuff. There's been so much talked about, and I know that we have it on our agenda to get an update from you, Joel, as well. But I just wanted to report back from the League of Cities and Towns that it's been such a pleasure to serve on that board, and that they are really working hard on our behalf, and that's all from me. So I guess we could go to Ronnie is usually the next one to report. So are you ready to go, Ronnie?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. And I had one opening question, which is if we have COVID specific questions, should we save it for that COVID updates part of the agenda later?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yes, we had and sorry, my head keeps kinking, but I got a second computer here I'm trying to read off of. We had our special April 1st council budget meeting, and then a special meeting on April 10th to extend the emergency declaration and bring on Clint York. Welcome again, Clint. I attended online a April 2nd housing task force meeting, and I'm going to let Kaylin report, but lots of good resources were discussed for the community at this time, including residents, including landlords, other things. And then I had an EMS board meeting on the 6th of April, not to take up too much time, but just to let you guys know, because I know you like details. We started in strong on March, as usual, higher than previous years, but then of course it tapered once the health department issued the closure order. And so now if you look, if I'm reading this right, January through March, when I got these numbers, instead of being 27% ahead of last year, we're probably only 15. And we could see as much of a 40% decrease in call volume if this goes on through May. But of course, if we get more COVID cases, that goes up instead. So, you know, lots of unknowns there, but EMS is doing a good job kind of trying to assess some possibilities of what might happen to their budget this year. They did look at RFPs, the RFP folks who applied for the design assist contract. And based on scoring, a unanimous decision was made to recommend Hogan Construction. So that is moving along. And I'm just skimming. There was a bill passed, House Bill 389. I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to look at it, but interesting in the sense that it did create a restricted fund for EMS funding to assist rural EMS, puts in place regional representatives to support rural areas, and funds a $2.4 million grant program for licensed EMS in counties of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th classes. And let me just see. That's probably the most important step. And then other than that, I've just been reading a lot about COVID, probably like the rest of you. So fun. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ronnie. Next is Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. The City Water Advisory Board, not only did we take a look at Corey's nice presentations about OA standards, water-related standards, which, as she said, we did approve. But in addition to that, Chuck came and talked about increases in water rates that are coming up. And Chuck actually appeared before us twice. And I encouraged him the first time to present some sales material, if you will, to show how our very old cast iron water pipes are breaking and how it's money in our pocket in the long run to replace these pipes now rather than later piecemeal. And one way or the other, it's going to take a substantial increase in water rates, in large part because the city just never got around to doing it in the years come by because nobody wanted to pay the bills then. So the bills will come due one way or the other. There's no getting around it. We did encourage Chuck. He shows some typical rate increases under different scenarios, and we encourage him to go easier on increases in base rates and lower tier water users and harder on higher tier water raters, which turns out to be by far the biggest volume of water that's consumed, because we're all very much aware that there's a lot of people in this town living on fixed incomes, and we didn't want to make small volumes of water be more unaffordable than they might be otherwise. So Chuck took that under advisement, and that's about it.
Thanks, Mike. I'm trying to remember our dais here. Tawny, you're next.
I attended 3 meetings for the Care Center, one on March 27th, one on April 2nd, and one on April 9th. March 27th and April 2nd were basically strategy meetings about possibly moving the residents from the Care Center to other accommodations if there was a surge at the hospital, and the hospital chose to deputize the beds at the Care Center. for COVID beds. And some members of the board met separately and did the due diligence and came up with a plan and decided that that was not an acceptable way to handle a surge at the hospital. For a variety of reasons, infection control, moving people that are already confused, safety issues. If we were to have a COVID positive patient at the care center, there is no other care center, another care center would not admit that patient. So this was, I think I know the hospital approached them and asked if that was a possibility. And in conjunction with the medical staff and the administrator of the hospital, they presented their due diligence and decided that that was not a viable solution. I was really glad that they chose not to do that. In my gut, I didn't think that that was a good idea. I just didn't have the reasons lined out in my head to support it. The board also sent a letter to CIB. Let me make sure it was CIB. Yes, was the Community Impact Board, asking for a deferment on a couple of payments. As of our last meeting, we had not heard back from them because we were the first in the state to ask for a deferment. And so they are assuming that there will be other asks. And so they just haven't gotten back to us. I don't think that they have come up with a plan or a process to put those in place. And I also attended the budget meeting and the special meeting, and I had a virtual cocktail party last night via Zoom. It was very fun. That's it.
Thanks, Tani. Next is Karen.
Hi. Okay, so I have attended quite a few. I've been following the state and federal regulations for small business. As you guys know, having a recreation business in Moab right now, we have been hit fairly hard with non-business. So I attended a Zoom chamber board meeting, and the chamber is working very closely with the Grand County Economic Development team with Zachariah. They formed a task force trying to get out as much information to small business as possible. And at this time right now, if anybody is interested in receiving information from the chamber, they're putting you on a list and adding you for free to get information about any concerns that you would have for business. I was in a call with Romney and the ULCT, and he was discussing the Utah Leads Together program that you were talking about, Emily. And it's kind of important to understand what this team is about. It's comprised of business leaders, healthcare experts, economic. So it's this economic response task force that is that's working with the Kim Gardner Institute, which is research analysis that comprise of economists and demographers. And the outlook is, there was a couple meetings that Kristen Tannert, who's the chief economic professor up at Kim Gardner, and she was saying that the outlook for Utah is only as good as the public health information that they're receiving, and they're working very close with healthcare experts. And so currently we're in this urgent phase, and then we're going to move into the stabilization phase, and they have a set plan. So we're in urgent, goes to stabilization, and then to recovery. So we have definitely a couple more weeks in the urgent phase, which is, as a business, and I know it can change on a dime, which is totally fine, but having some sort of beacon to know where we're going is very helpful. So that's definitely appreciated. I was in a call with Congressman Curtis, and let's see, I attended a Salt Lake City Chamber meeting. There was a call with Governor Herbert that I listened in on, a call with Governor Cox. I mean, there's something going on almost every day of the week if you're interested in finding out what's happening up at the state. April 1st, there was the Utah Office of Outdoor Recreation summit that Val Howell discussed, the Utah Leads Together bridge loan for small businesses. And that is being sponsored by EDC Utah. And their office is giving $5,000 to $20,000 to small businesses in the state of Utah, and 25% of that is going to rural Utah, which is great. And it's 0 interest over 5 years. The first payment isn't due for a year. Round 2 started yesterday, and that opened up for nonprofits as well as for businesses who potentially didn't get in on the first round. And that is going to be from yesterday to April 16th at 12 o'clock. So on Thursday at noon, that's the second wave is going through. And then if anybody needs resources, the coronavirus.utah.gov/business has an amazing array of information. And it's a great resource because the rapid response team that is working through this website, they are giving assistance directly to any business owner that is asking any questions. They have over 50 volunteers and they're working 7 days a week. So there is a slew of programs for businesses out there right now, and they are trying their best to get information out. I've also been able to take a few sessions at the David Eccles School of Business. These courses are being offered free for small business, and the courses are called Navigating COVID-19, How to Save Your Business. And so it's been a really amazing resource, and it's just very impressive how not aggressive, that's probably not the right word, but how progressive Utah has been for business. Attended the budget council meeting, the 2x2, let's see here. And then yesterday I listened in on the town hall for local government. And like you mentioned, Emily, that they're going into special session starting at 9 a.m. this Thursday. And then Juliette Tanner again gave an update about the Utah Leads Together plan. And she really feels that we are closing in on the urgent phase. And that Utah has been very successful and seen beneficial effects of our social distancing practices. And I just, again, kudos to Utah. I think we are doing a great job. Currently, there's 80,000 people who have filed unemployment claims in Utah. Leisure and hospitality is the hardest hit sector, followed by healthcare and education. And that's a little concerning because typically these are the higher end paid positions for people. So it's not just, restaurant workers and our retail staff. It's, we all know that it's affecting everyone, but there is so many people going on unemployment, and also, businesses trying to keep people from going on unemployment, doing the PPP program, which has been super frustrating for a lot of businesses because we haven't even heard anything. And some of us applied the minute that it opened up. So it's been about 10 days and they're getting flooded. So I just continue to look out for emails from the SBA or from the loan officers at your bank. And then the Cam Gardner was talking about that when we do move back to this is for businesses. When we move back into opening business up again, that businesses really do need to be prepared for going in slow. And we're probably not going to have the light switch analogy of shutting everything off, but there could be the dimmer switch where, I mean, we are going to have to scale things back. So we don't know when exactly we're going to get out of it, but I don't think it's going to be the same for quite a while. So, and then that was it.
Thanks, Karen. That was a lot, and definitely helpful to hear your perspective as a small business going through. I was just going to add a couple things. Grand County is at 17% unemployment right now. If you'd like, we can reach out to our representatives, Congressman John Curtis, to share with him the PPP anxiety. I can reach out to him tonight if you want. And then there is another outdoor recreation event. The Office of Outdoor Rec is doing another event tomorrow. Karen, did you get that? Were you aware of that? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, no, would you send that? That'd be great.
And I'll send it to Lacey as well.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Oh, one positive thing. Well, there's lots of positive things, but so I was able to get in contact with Trail Mix, and Maddie Logwitz was able to talk with the BLM, and we're trying to, because my concern is that, so as an employer, we are paying our employees to work if they show up to the shop or if they don't. And so we were really looking at, as if any of us who've gotten to be able to like play outside during this time, like you can really realize like how special this
how lucky we are.
Yes, we are so lucky. And so we are going to start doing some infrastructure work, and hopefully we're going to be able to open up some volunteer time, and there'll be plenty of social distancing. But if anybody would like to work on some trails and get prepared for when we do open up, this is a great time. Because we're not on vacation, and it is also a way to get people outside and doing something constructive for our community. So if anybody's interested, please contact me, and we will set up some training with Maddie with Trail Mix.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Kaylin, you're up.
I attended a Moab Travel Council meeting. March TRT is effectively 0, and just due to ongoing expenses at the office, unfortunately, as well as the county taking their share for other programs, the available advertising budget later this year is looking pretty dismal until we start getting some significant visitation to replenish those coffers. So there's a lot of concern about that. Elaine has a plan through the state cooperative marketing program for when the county has enough of a match to focus on primarily driving or originations that can drive here. So that's largely Salt Lake, Denver, Arizona, but and originally that was projected as for 2020, but now she's wondering if it's actually 2021. So that's unfortunate. But the state is looking at sort of reworked Mighty 5 campaign to sort of try to keep Utah in the minds of travelers as we emerge from this crisis. So hopefully that will help. I attended a housing task force meeting, as Ronnie mentioned, and we were mostly talking about resources for tenants that are impacted by the current situation. The Grand County COVID-19 Task Force has a subcommittee that's created a resource guide for those experiencing financial hardship, specifically related to shelter. And that was focused on both employers as well as employees / tenants. And so we spent a fair amount of time talking about the role of landlords and resources for them as well, because there are, they provide a lot of the housing and they're under their own pressures due to mortgages. There's a working document for resources for them as well as another link in that chain of providing shelter. And obviously there's a lot of meetings to attend virtually to just information, but really appreciate all that Karen shared about that. And that's what I've got.
Thanks, Kaylin. Before we move on to administrative reports, I wanted to let you all know that there is a proclamation that's going to be coming out and shared on social media. We didn't have time to put it on the agenda, and I don't plan to put it on our next agenda, but it was, we are borrowing it from actually the community where I grew up in Ohio. So there's been concern just among our community of our elderly population, of our neighbors. There's concern about how people are doing. There is some pretty significant concern about people being isolated and not just getting out, if only for a moment each day. And so I came across this proclamation, this idea of the same time every day, doing a neighborly salute. And I think for many of our more densely populated neighborhoods, this might be a great way for us to check in on each other at the same time each day with a wave. So as you know, most proclamations are like, whereas this and whereas that. So I will spare you the whereases, and I'll just hit the meat at the end of the proclamation. Whereas in Moab, there is always and has been a strong sense of community, neighborliness, and genuine concern for one another. Whereas as a tangible and daily way for residents to connect in person while still practicing social distancing, all Moab residents are invited and encouraged to step outside at 6 p.m. each evening for a few moments to wave at each other and shout out words of greeting and support. So that is what we're going to share on social media as a proclamation. And so hopefully we can all do this and join together and get the word out about a 6 p.m. neighborly salute. And that's a way in which we can really check in on each other, specifically the elders of our community. So please help me share that. Please share the proclamation and the message with your social media channels. And we'll be putting that out probably tomorrow. And now we're moving on to administrative reports. Joel?
All right, so on Friday, the council appointed a new finance director, and Clint York has been appointed to that. So we'd like to welcome him again. We obviously did this Friday, but we wanted to give it an opportunity to do it again today, where we were having our regularly scheduled meeting. We thought more people may be watching and more people may tune in. So we'd like to welcome him. And as a member of our team, he started Thursday, off to an awesome start. Things are going really, really well. So I'm sure sure he has a lot of thoughts on what he's seen so far, but we got a lot of work to do, and he knows that. So but we're happy to have him and really excited as we go forward. So I'll be quick. We have the regional transportation plan is coming up. We talked about this the other day. UDOT is putting that together for us. Us in the county are partnering with them. We have a stakeholder meeting, which is April 29th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And the city gets to put 6 people on that transportation plan. And after we adopt the committee tonight for the hotspot funding, we'll come back probably within the next week to appoint those members. We probably want to appoint that UDOT stakeholder group as well for the transportation planning. So again, just be thinking of that. We need 6 people for that. And then however many we need for the transportation hotspot funding, what we're going to set up tonight and however we finalize that. So the county will pick their members. And so we just need to make sure they're from the city. The Bike Skills Park, which is being built over off First East, is about to start. It goes over right off the Mill Creek Bridge that comes down behind Woody's and that. And they're going to start putting that in here in the next month or so, next couple of weeks. And so you watch for that. The Highway 191 widening is moving forward. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It so far has been kind of off the sides of the roads. Next week, we'll start seeing some major construction work inside the lanes, and UDOT is committed to keeping a lane of traffic going in both directions at all times. So theoretically, shouldn't see many disruptions to your travel, but nonetheless, next week I think is when you're going to really start seeing the impacts to the travel lanes that we're used to. With that, the shared bike path will remain open through the process, but the striped bike lane that is on the highway itself, that will be going away as they remove the road and improve that. So for now, the bike path on the bike lane, striped bike lane on the road will be going away, but the shared bike path will remain. So there is that. They're currently not planning on doing any night construction. We initially had authorized them to if they needed to in order to prevent it from going over the year period. They think with kind of the way things are going and the traffic flows they're seeing and the way that the amount of work they've been getting done up till now, they're not thinking they're going to need to do that. So right now they're thinking daytime work only, daylight hours basically 6, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to 8 o'clock at night ish. So that's what they're looking at for that. And then lastly, our RAP tax deadline is coming up with the county, and I have a meeting set with them this week. And so we should have a RAP tax update going forward at our next meeting. So any more questions about any of that?
Okay, let's move right along to section 7 on our agenda. Oh, and thank you so much, Joel. Thank you for those updates. And probably to speak for all of us with the UDOT widening, get her done, do it now. Very good. There is lemonade with these lemons. Okay, so section 7, citizens to be heard. Just sharing with those that are watching to have your comments considered for citizens to be heard. There is a form, an electronic form that can be filled out if you go to the agenda center, or sorry, our website, and to the agenda section of our website. You can find a link to submit comments as if you would be a citizen to be heard. Comments need to be in by the time of our meeting. And we ask that comments are limited to 400 words. In this age of digital technology, it is a little confusing. It is a little complicated with citizens to be heard. But I also did want to outline and reiterate the logistics of how we're doing citizens to be heard. That the council will receive comments from citizens as we would during our citizens to be heard. So we're receiving them online digitally as they're made. The chair of our meeting, so I will state at the meeting how many comments have been received. So tonight, as of tonight, we've received 1 comment for a citizen to be heard. And then the public will have access to all comments made for citizens to be heard by the next day. And again, if those comments will be made available on on our city page, on our website under the agenda section of our webpage. So that is that. And now we are moving on to section 8, old business. 8.1, COVID-19 updates. So Joel, we're just looking to you for general COVID updates for us as a city. Take it away.
Yeah, so the mayor and Karen, all of you hit on a lot of it. The mayor and Karen hit on a ton of it, so that's going to make this a lot quicker. The legislation aspect of things that's going on, we're working on that. We reached out to our group and to the health department, and we're working on making sure that our bases are covered as we deal with that. City Hall is still open for business, but closed to the public. Please feel free to contact us if you need anything. The health department is getting ready to extend their order May 4th to May 4th. It will be released. Some changes tomorrow. Current restrictions on lodging will remain in effect as they are. Restaurants are going to come into line with the governor's order, which will allow for people to go inside to order. It will not allow for inside dining, but you'll be able to actually go in, place your order, get your food, and go from there. And the health department is also reviewing mitigation plans from other businesses. A good example of that is the golf course. Initially, the golf course was closed. They approached the health department with a mitigation plan, how they could operate safely, and the golf course was then opened back up. So they're going to be reviewing mitigation plans for other businesses to see who they can get open and going safely. The health department wanted me to thank all of you and thank the public for all of the support that they've received, and everyone's continued social distancing actions through this process. The reason we're getting through this up to this point so well is because of the reaction to the public and the support of the local governments and the leadership of the health department. So when I was talking to Orion today, he wanted me to extend a thank you to all of you and make sure that you all understood how much he appreciates you and the public for what you're doing and making this such a success so far. He also said that they are aware of the legislation that's taking place and that they're looking for us to put some letters together, letters of support on what the health department's doing. And so we'll be working on those as a staff this week, and we'll be getting those to you guys for signature. And so we can get those to the health department and get them to the legislature as well to try and stand for what we've done so far. And I just can't say how proud I am of local government, the health departments, the counties and the cities throughout the state, because that's who's doing all of this. You know, the higher you go up in government, the less action that there has been and less help there's been. So I just want to thank everyone. And those are the changes that are coming forward tomorrow. There have been talks that we're starting to figure out how to move back to a more normal situation as a community. Obviously not a normal situation. None of us think we're anywhere close to getting back to a normal situation, but start moving in a direction here in a couple of weeks of what the new reality will be for a little while. So that's where we're at. We're still in a holding period and we're waiting, like all of you. We all think we have a couple more weeks until we have peak and decline. And so until we get that information that comes with the peak and the decline, it's a lot of waiting to see what the information we have to make the decisions that we have to make will be. So that's where we're at. Are there any questions about any of that so far? Or is there any questions about anything else? Ronnie, what's up?
I just had a few. So I think I just wanted to confirm, I think today I caught, are we now confirmed for the state of Utah that the schools are going to remain closed for through end of year?
The announcement today was the schools will be closed through the end of the year. A lot of the colleges are now announcing that they're going to straight online for summer semester, which would run through August. So you're seeing universities, they're now instituting it. BYU announced today, I think Utah State's already announced they're instituting online process through August. So we'll wait and see if August and September are the magic dates we get to go back to school.
And then I know a mobile station was moved on to the Navajo Nation. What I gathered from the last thing I listened to, but I wanted to ask those of you on the task force if I got this right, that tests should now be available for anyone with one of the key symptoms. But I wanted to check if that applied to us in rural areas or if that was only really hitting the Wasatch Front. So,
it's applying broader than just to the Wasatch Front. obviously when this process started out in early March, the first week of March, when we all started really working on this heavily before we started doing anything 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, we were really focused on home. I mean, no one knew what was going to happen. No one knew what supply chains were going to be like. No one knew if everyone else was going to be overrun. So you were going to be really locked into what you had. And so initially when we started this, and for the last month, we've really focused on home and making sure that we can cover for Moab, because that's our responsibility. Over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, as the tribal nation has seen this become more of a problem and we've weathered the storm a little well, we've started including San Juan representatives in our task force meetings, not as like having a say or a vote, but we want information coming from them to see how, if this keeps going the way it's going, how we can help them and what we can learn from them. So over the last 2 weeks, we've expanded out to include San Juan and Navajo Nation, and seeing how we can start working to try and provide some services as this keeps going, if we stay in the situation we're in and their situation continues to decline. So you're starting to see a lot of more crossover, and my understanding is the testing is expanding statewide.
Okay, I mean, do we know locally if it's available yet for anybody with the key 6 symptoms? Oh, thanks.
So
Mayor.
actually, everyone, and Joel, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I did ask Jen Sadoff, CEO of the hospital, to be available to us during this COVID update section. She's here now. And so Ronnie, I'm sure that she can answer that question. Do you want to just restate it as she just
Disappeared.
Oh, she just disappeared.
My understanding is that they were expanding out who could get a test as well. Not only were they making it more available statewide, but also symptoms were less. I don't think it's everyone gets the test. We're not there yet.
Right.
But we are expanding out what the requirements are, who can get a test.
Okay, you know, I'm asking because sometimes when they generalize, they have their little Wasatch Front hats on and they don't always think about us, that we might be a little different, so.
Let me just try to get Jen back on the call here. Oh, here she is, connecting to audio. I think Summer, I think, Jen, are you there? Summer, are you there? Can you tell us what's going on?
I don't know. It just doesn't show that she has any audio.
Okay. Let me just send her a link in another way. Okay. Sorry, Joel, keep going with your updates.
What other questions, Ronnie?
Oh, well, my only other one that I'm generally going to ask you guys, my impression for reading the April 10th notification from the health department was we are all encouraged to wear masks in public places. I just wanted to confirm in case I had misinterpreted.
Encourage is the key word. It's not required.
Okay.
It's encouraged if you're in public, especially if you're not feeling well for any reason. Then
yeah.
Definitely. So.
I'm still working on how to not fog my glasses too much with it, but these are the challenges of modern living.
My girlfriend wore her dog's scarf. It worked out well.
I'm definitely going to bring the scarf back for the personal protection. All right, it looks like we've got Jen coming back. Oh, terrific. Hi, Jen. So everybody, we started with a question because I think we're probably going to have a few for you here. But a question first about testing. So where are we with testing?
Yesterday, the health department changed their guidelines for testing. So now anybody with even one symptom of COVID-19, which includes sore throat, cough, shortness of breath, fever, they've expanded it to also include loss of smell or taste and muscle ache / weakness. So anybody with even one symptom can be tested at Moab Regional Hospital for free.
And how are you doing with like face mask donations? I know the community really showed up for making additional masks. So are you still needing more masks, or are we full?
No, we have a lot of masks, and we're really grateful for the community for bringing those to us. The masks that the community makes for us, we use on patients and any visitors, and then for employees who are working in non-aerosolizing COVID areas. So we still need to use hospital grade N95s for anybody who would be treating a patient in a aerosolizing way. So like even in the tent, when they do the tests on patients, that's considered an aerosolizing action. So good. PPE is still a concern. So we're still working on making sure that we have enough for people who are treating patients. But we have no patients who are hospitalized at Moab Regional Hospital with COVID-19.
Other questions for Jen?
Do we still just have one in the county, one case?
We have one positive test in the county.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks for popping in, Jen.
You're welcome. Thank you all for being there. Have a great night.
And please tell everybody that's working at the hospital, thank you. From all of us.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's see, where are we now on our agenda? Apologies. We are now at new business, is that correct? Looks like it. 9-1, our budget workshop for proposed fiscal year 2020 to 2021 annual budget. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Mayor.
And I'm making the, I've been sharing the metaphor that it's like how we used to run track and with relay races. You're literally passing the baton, and there are a few moments where you are both touching the baton, and this is one of those moments. So thank you for calling in and being with us tonight for this meeting and to present this. And apologies, although I'm not sure that you wanted to do this Good Friday at 5 p.m. So apologies that we didn't end up doing it Friday, but thank you for being here with us now tonight, Tuesday night. And thank you, Clint, for being with us. So just turning it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Can I present my screen? Let me see. And while I'm presenting, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off because that way I can focus more on the screen instead of what's reflecting on my glasses, but I'll keep my audio on. So let me share. Okay, everyone should be able to see my screen. And I just wanted to say before I get into the presentation, so after our last discussion, I had put together the spreadsheet. I'm going to show it to you real quick. That's shared out with City Council. That has the detail of our budget. And actually, while you were going through your council reports, I was going through answering the questions that have been posted since last night. So everything that is in there currently has a response. Hopefully those answers will make sense. One of the questions that came up repeatedly was the question about overtime and personnel costs in relation to COVID. And so before I start the presentation, I just wanted to kind of review this budget that's in front of you is the pre-COVID budget that we put together prior to any of the closures and the reductions. And it included the $1.2 million decrease that we needed pre-COVID. The COVID financial plan, which I have at the end of this presentation, think of that as kind of a, in planning terms, think of it as kind of a budget overlay. So we have our pre-COVID budget, and then we have the COVID financial plan that has the tiers that we implement as we realize revenue losses in stages. So rather than trying to make this budget the worst case scenario when we don't know what that looks like right now, We'll go into the COVID financial plan that addresses that in segments. So let me get into the budget overview. So this is kind of a general overview of the budget, just going through. We've talked about what has gone into the $1.2 million reduction and the fact that pre-COVID we were budgeting sales tax revenues to remain flat. So no increase was projected for next year based on, there was a fairly aggressive increase in this current year of 7%, which pre-COVID we were hoping to hit. And I know it's white right now. Let me just scroll down. So we looked at this with last year's revenue as well, but I thought it was helpful just to kind of put it into context of where all of our revenue comes from, our revenue portfolio. So this is not just general fund. So when we talk about general fund, sales-based taxes are around 85 to 87% of our total general fund revenue. But when you look at the city as a whole with our enterprise funds and the recreation funds, it's about 54%. User fees, which include the enterprise fund, so that includes our utilities, water and sewer, recreation, and actually building permits are down under licenses and permits. The other thing that is included in user fees is the Wahoo. However, for this next year, I've estimated Wahoo at 0 based on the, well, now based on the shutdown in part, but also because of the new overnight accommodation regulations. Impact fees, which obviously can't go to operations, but are for capital, represent 3.46. Other revenue, the small sources that are made up of things like rental fees, miscellaneous grants that we get, interest. Class C road and the transportation tax, those are restricted to uses pertaining to roads. Licenses and permits, intergovernmental, and then property taxes on there just to show the council and the public that we currently do not levy a property tax. This next year's budget pre-COVID does not anticipate a property tax. However, part of the COVID financial plan is the recommendation to explore new revenue sources. It's too late this year to implement a property tax for next year, but potentially fiscal year 22, that might be a revenue source that you might want to explore to make up for losses in sales tax. Is it okay to proceed from revenue? Can I go on to the next chart? I'm going to take silence as a yes. Actually, I'm going to check back in and make sure everyone's still there and you can still hear me. Someone talk if you can still see my screen.
This is Ronnie. I still see it.
Okay, thank you. It's like when you're on a cell phone call and the other caller drops and you keep talking, you're not sure if anybody's still there. Okay, so this just kind of gives you a look at the proposed budget fiscal year ending 21 compared to last year across the different categories, just to kind of give you an idea of the differences. Sales-based taxes, again, are budgeted to remain the same. And again, that is pre-COVID. We'll look at the COVID financial plan towards the end of this presentation. User fees, a slight decrease. Impact fees decreased significantly, mostly due to the new regulations on overnight accommodations. And then other revenues down slightly, and for Class C licenses and permits and intergovernmental, not much of a change there. It just felt like several ways to look at it, maybe was better, but this shows you that overall pre-COVID, we had a projected revenue reduction. So that was before we looked at the reductions in sales tax that will be the result of the closure. Then on the expenditure side, I just wanted to give you a look at sales tax expenditures. So these are not enterprise fund. Recreation, it's just the portion of recreation that's dependent on sales taxes versus what they raise in their user fees. But we went to each department and said, we need you to come in net zero from where you were last year, and potentially we need you to come in lower than that. In addition to that, HR in their estimate of personnel costs froze longevity, froze all leave time cash outs, and froze merit increases.
So that is part of the reductions that you see here. For example, in public safety, the 15% reduction, a significant portion of that is to lowered personnel costs, which was part of the $1.2 million reduction that we were implementing just to get the budget to break even. Public Works had a slight increase overall, and recreation a 13% decrease. Community services, the 20% decrease that you see there is pretty much all in part to the, I won't say the elimination, but the suspension of community contributions, the funding that goes out to the community for grants and projects. And sorry, I didn't start out by saying this, but what you're looking at is the percent year-over-year change. So this is the percent that it changed based on the fiscal year 20 budget. And this is shared with you. So I will send a link out to you tonight, and then you can click on any of these and it takes you into the spreadsheet that shows you all of the data behind it. This, just for anybody that wants to dig a little bit deeper, it's the same as the graph you previously saw. It just breaks it down to departments instead of by function, so that you can just see the overall increases and decreases by department. Safety shows a significant increase, and that was actually a couple of the questions in the shared budget worksheet. This last year, the safety department itself was eliminated and departments were supposed to absorb those safety costs. That unfortunately wasn't clearly communicated to all the departments, so they didn't include safety in their budget. So their budgets weren't increased by the cost of safety equipment and maintenance and supplies. So this year we brought the safety budget back so that we can make sure that public safety, public works, everyone has the safety equipment, supplies, and maintenance that they need to safely perform their jobs. And again, this you can click through and it will take you to each of the departments, and you can see it by function and by department. So that being said, just an overview of the budgeted revenue, the budgeted expenditures. I just wanted to revisit the COVID financial planning. And again, think of this as kind of an overlay to the budget. So the budget was pre-COVID, planning for worst case scenario in the budget doesn't give you as much flexibility, because you need to see as this progresses what types of impacts it's going to have on our revenue. I expanded this range of shortfalls to 35% so that you could see, and this is just on sales-based taxes, things like utilities hopefully will remain constant, since those services don't really have as much fluctuation. But at 35% reduction, we'd be looking at a $3.3 million loss. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you by month what percentage of our revenue comes in, so that it can kind of give you an idea of the overall impact on the reductions. And then the 4 tiers that we've looked at previously, I've adjusted those so that you could achieve that 35%. Obviously, it could be more, could be less. We're all hoping it will be less. If it is more, then the tiers just need to be adjusted and priorities need to be changed as far as what those reductions look like. So this is a 12-month sales tax snapshot, and it's a snapshot because the 12 months are not all in the same year, so that you could see what comes in each year. We haven't received April sales tax distribution yet. That comes in usually around the 25th of the month. And April sales tax distribution will represent sales in Moab City that occurred in the month of February because of that 60-day lag. But you can see under each of these the percentage that it represents of the overall sales tax that we collect. So March's payment came in good. April, we're waiting to see. There should definitely be a reduction since the closure happened halfway through the month. May represents 9%, June represents 9%, July represents 11%. So I think that should give you a feel when we're looking at overall reductions. If, you know, going up to 35%, if we estimated high and set some of these months down to 0, these 3 months would represent 29%. of our overall sales tax revenue. April is 4%. We'd be at 33% if I haven't lost track of my math. So that just kind of helps you put into perspective based on how long the potential closure might last, or how long the downturn in visitation, and then how long it would take us to rebound from that revenue reduction. So revisiting the 4 tiers, and I have recalculated them to get us to that 35% loss or reduction. The main difference in this is in tier 4, but in tier 2, I just wanted to point out, and Tani, you touched on that in your administrative report. I received a notice last week from the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board that they would be accepting deferment requests. So over here on the left, deferred CIB debt, that is the amount of debt or debt payment that we could apply to the CIB board to have deferred to fiscal year 22, or I'm assuming those parameters might shift depending on what happens with the COVID-19 outbreak, but that has been added into tier 2. Tier 1 has stayed the same. And Mike, specifically, you had some questions in the budget worksheet about overtime and about some of the personnel costs for traveling and education. And so those would be reduced as part of tier 1 or as part of this financial plan. Right now, everything in this maintenance and operations section is a 50% reduction. Depending on what the revenue reductions look like, you could always take this and make it a 75% reduction, or somewhere in between, 50 and 100. Obviously, there's a minimum level that you need to maintain to make sure that you're offering an acceptable service level to the community. That obviously would be up to council and administration to determine what that acceptable level would be if we were faced with trying to increase tier 1 to help cover those revenue reductions. Tier 2, again, the main change is deferring that CIB debt. I will say that if that's something you're interested in pursuing, we do have to apply for that. And I've forwarded that information to Clint and can discuss that with him if you want. You may want to just go ahead and put in your request now. If you need to use it, great. If you don't need to use it, then you can make your payment. It does not include the payment on the aquatic center, which is $191,000, because that has an offset from a cooperative agency. So at some point you might want to have a conversation with that agency to make sure that that contribution would still be forthcoming. Otherwise, you would want to include that in your request for deferment.
And that agency's the county, right? The special service district, but ultimately the county, right?
It's the Recreation Special Service District. So they have their own budget. However, their funding is distributed from the county.
And it's from mineral lease, correct?
I believe so. I believe so, that they could verify that for you for sure.
I think it's probably worth it to get a letter of intent, or, request a letter from them saying as much, right?
That, if you're asking me, yes, that sounds like a good idea.
Great.
And might as well see if we can't put off paying some bills too. Unless any council member disagrees with that, I don't think you need to. I think you can proceed with that for sure.
Our perspective is we're going to do it, and then if you guys choose to not take advantage of it once it's granted, then we can still pay them. There's no reason to ask for the ability and then decline it if we don't want to.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll get rolling on that.
And just to beat a dead horse, Rachel, we can't get out of the almost $1 million payment for the wastewater reclamation facility.
You could certainly ask that board for a deferment. The issue with that is you're paying it with impact fee funds. And so in the Utah League of Cities and Towns, the finance committee meetings, the committee that I was participating on, I put that out there to the league that if they could request from the legislature that for a year or two, they relaxed those restrictions on impact fees so that they could be used to cover operations. If that happens, then yes, a deferment would help, because then you could take the funds that you would have used to make that payment to help offset sewer. However, the problem is sales tax does not pay for sewer. So the places that you're going to be experiencing your reductions, impact fees don't cross over. You could do a loan from the enterprise fund into the general fund, but in order to do that, you have to set up a schedule of making those payments back into the enterprise fund. So overall, in the grand scheme, yes, it could help. How it would help would be kind of tricky to work out, but it may not hurt to request a deferment. Even if that money sits in the bank, you could still be earning interest on it.
Thank you.
Tier 3 is the interlocal agreement, and that would be basically what we talked about on the flip side, and it would be reducing payments based on interlocal agreements that we have with other government agencies. Tier 4 is the biggest tier. That's sort of why it's pushed out to Tier 4, and those are personnel reductions. So previously, when we were looking at a smaller range of reductions, I had a 15% reduction in personnel costs. This takes it up to a 28% reduction in personnel costs, which is significant and substantial, and would directly impact the level of service that the city would be able to offer to the community. But in a case where you're losing or reducing potentially 35% of your revenue, that unfortunately would be the situation that you'd be in to have to make those choices. So with a 28% reduction in Tier 4, that would, the bottom right number there, the 3.3 million, that would get you to covering the 35% reduction in revenue. Now, these tiers are progressive for certain, but they can be implemented in any order that you would like to implement them. I just started with the place that it was easiest to make the cuts and worked my way up to where it was hardest or the most painful to make the cuts. But I think, Mike, that will probably help answer some of your questions in the budgeting worksheet about why the numbers you saw in the proposed budget were not reduced. And that is because as you, or if you in the near future decide to implement this plan, that would in effect reduce those numbers. You could do it as the continuation of a spending freeze specific to the items under maintenance and operations, or you could actually choose to amend the budget to reflect these reductions. So that would be going in and doing a budget amendment that's reducing travel by, this proposes 50%, but whatever percentage you felt comfortable reducing it by for each of these line items, so that your overall bottom line to your budget would reflect a $712,000 reduction in expenses and then a corresponding $712,000 reduction in revenue.
So Rachel, by the way, the FYE 21 budget, my fundamental error was that I didn't realize that was a pre-COVID budget. So that's why some of my initial questions. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And it's definitely been confusing because we've talked about the budget so much, and then COVID just popped up in the middle of our budget process. So yeah, hopefully that kind of makes sense, how this is just sort of almost like a supplemental budget plan that would run in conjunction with the proposed budget as you see what those reductions are going to look like. And we're back to white space. So that's actually the end of the presentation. And I wasn't sure for tonight's agenda if you wanted to try and go through items of the budget, or if you were just kind of looking for an overview, since obviously the budget will be changing based on COVID. I don't know how much time you want to invest in some of the items that look like are most definitely going to change. I did share with you, and let me come back to the drive. Has everyone been able to find, let me pull it up real quick. Sorry. Has everyone been able to find the fiscal year ending 21? This Google Drive right here. This is where I've been putting all of the supplementary information. This was actually the last financial presentation I did, so those ranges don't go up to 35%. It did include the CIP prioritized list that council adopted a few meetings ago. Seems like a year ago, but it was only a couple meetings ago. Of our prioritized list. So one of the questions on the budget worksheet is, okay, when we are at the point that we do have some resources that we can allocate back into capital projects, you know, how do we choose where that's going to go, given that we maybe had to cut projects this year? And that's when you're going to come back to this prioritized list that went through that rating and ranking process through the matrix. And obviously that can be changed. It can be re-rated and ranked. It's possible that our new COVID reality might change some of that criteria or rearrange some of the priorities for those capital projects. So when we built it, the intention was to revisit it every year anyway, but that would be kind of your guidebook to, okay, now we have some resources. What capital project do we want to spend them on? I did put in here a copy of the citywide equipment and capital projects. And that is a sheet that finance uses and then the department use as well, but it shows you everything that was requested in detail for equipment and capital projects. And then there's columns to show what was recommended and what wasn't. And I will tell you what I told the departments, this was a year of not many things made it through due to funding, and even fewer now because of COVID. But it at least gives you an idea of what the departments are requesting and what they need to operate their departments. I will tell you one of the critical areas that we're not fully addressing this year and probably won't next year is our aging vehicles and aging equipment in public works. We have trucks and other equipment that is 20 to 25 years old that our maintenance costs are inflating every year. And so I tried to work some of that into this year's budget with a lease purchase. The COVID plan actually eliminates those or pushes it out a couple of years, but this list will give you an idea of those needs because a lot of them are on there every year and we fund them as we can. I've done a lot of talking. Are there questions?
Well, Rachel, what I was going to say is that we're almost at 8:30 now. Thank you so much for going over where we can go to look for information.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for giving this presentation for us. Because we're at 8:30 and still have other items, I think unless anybody has a real burning question for tonight's meeting, I think it looks like Ronnie has a question or comment.
I don't know if it's burning, but thanks for answering all those questions I put up there, Rachel. If I, and I kind of ran out of time, so, but I saw you gave us some more tools via email. So if I end up with some more questions, are you and Clint okay if I write some more in the little question column?
Yes. Yep. Write all you want.
Hey, and Clint, good luck. I mean, coming from a whole different industry, seems to me you got a hill to climb here about all the city's rules. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions that I can help with.
Thank you. I think Rachel's done a great job of presenting this. I'll work as closely as I can with her for the next, few days, weeks, whatever she'll give me, and do what we can to muddle through it.
Thanks, Clint. I'm sure you're going to do awesome. I'm just sorry that you're starting right in the middle of COVID, but we're all in it together.
Okay. It is what it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I do recognize that the next agenda item is something that you had worked on, but talking with Joel, he's set to present for that. So I think we can say.
Mayor, I talked to Rachel right before the meeting started, and Rachel's going to present on this one as well.
Oh, okay. Well, then we will move right along to the next item. Is my internet okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Am I okay? A little bit.
You kind of break up a little bit, but right now you're understandable.
Okay. So next item on our agenda, 9.2, proposed ordinance 2020-5, an ordinance repealing alcohol licensing in Moab City. It's a briefing and possible action. I know there were some questions regarding this ordinance. So could we just maybe have a little discussion and then I'll entertain a motion at any time. But since Rachel's here, do you all want to ask some questions of Rachel?
I thought it was pretty straightforward. I don't really have any questions. It just seemed like it was redundant based on DABC's updated rules. So I'm okay.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Karen?
Sorry, I was just gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the proposed ordinance 2020-05, repealing local alcoholic beverage licensing and associated fees.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tawny. Discussion?
Yeah, like I say, I think I noted on the council comments forms, Rachel, that by deleting 520, and I think Karen might have pointed out the same sort of thing, that it left some questions in my mind about what the difference between public and private events were and what special events were, exactly how local consent is actually done. I mean, all that kind of got left undefined, and maybe it is defined somewhere else. It just wasn't real obvious to me.
So that's a good question, Mike. DABC actually is the final authority for all of the regulations for private event versus a public event. And they have those definitions in state code. You know, part of it depends on if you're charging, if it's advertised, things of that nature. For local consent, we actually haven't outlined local consent previously. It was granted by City Council, and then it was requested by City Council that the city manager have the authority to grant local consent. So local consent, I don't want to say that it's a formality, but when an applicant comes in and they apply with DABC, local consent says, yes, the local authority, which is Moab City, has knowledge that this applicant is applying for this type of license, and we're not protesting it. So in the time that I've dealt with licensing, we've never not given a local consent. I'm not sure in what circumstance we wouldn't give a local consent. The state is the authority on checking proximity requirements, proximities to schools, churches, playgrounds, and religious institutions. So we can't be more strict than the state is. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but the city manager would still be signing and granting local consent. Repealing this ordinance does not take that away.
Okay, so for example, the new code that Joel added, bless his little heart, about being able to do alcohol at certain public and private events, that ability to conduct those events still exists. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the difference, Mike, is when we drafted and changed that code, we were operating under the old rules that the state of Utah had with heavy beer, light beer, and light beer being 32% of alcohol by volume and heavy beer being more than that. And so we used to have a set of rules of how we governed light beer events because we were the city governed those. When the state changed the game in November and they just went to heavy beer sales and they got rid of the 3.2 beer, our real authority, what we were doing kind of went out the window. We didn't need to do it anymore. So now we're just under where the state needs to sign off on it to begin with. If the state signs off on it and they're willing to allow it to do it, I don't know why we wouldn't, unless we don't want to do it. I mean, if we want to get stricter than the state's being, then we have that right and we can pass a set of rules that's more strict than what the state's doing to a degree. But our attitude at this point is with them getting rid of the light beer, heavy beer, let's just follow state code.
Okay, well, that's fine. I was just trying to clarify. Thank you.
Ronnie?
So I had 3 related questions on the shared document, and kind of related to this. So before, like now in chapter 5 for local consent, we have all this related language that has to do with not just how it's approved and who approves it. It states that the city manager does it. But there's also language on the expiration and forfeiture and suspension, refusal, revocation, sublease of local consent. I mean, it also includes licensing, but local consent is part of that. So does that all go away, or does that stay and move over to chapter 4? I mean, do you still need to say in your code where someone goes and how, the process, or
The
do you not
process,
need that anymore?
the process at this point will be the state. They need to go through the DABC, follow all the DABC guidelines, get their fencing, get all the requirements, do their outlines and their drawings, how they're gonna do it all, and the state approves it.
But for local consent, Joel, you would still be granting local consent. And so
Yes.
Ronnie, by eliminating it in this chapter, it doesn't mean that local consent goes away. We had adopted it mirroring state code previously, and we don't need to do that now. Joel has the authority that the city council vested in him to approve local consent. So
Okay, I only ask in part because that's the only place in the code that I knew we had stated, like you go to the city manager for local consent. So I didn't know if we took it out, if I guess it's still in that original ordinance or somewhere. And so the other question is, chapter 5 was the place that we said which parks we were going to allow alcohol at on a local basis and during what hours. So even if we're getting rid of the licensing, and don't we still need to state that somewhere so park users know like where they could schedule an event where they could have alcohol or during what hours?
I think that's in our park section of the code, but I'm looking to Joel to.
And that is, and it's in our park policy that we went through, and we have that. We're actually preparing it and finalizing it now. And so it'll be cleaned up and put in the park aspects. Remember, we went through and made all of those where we were allowing the dogs and how we were changing all that. And then COVID broke out and it's gotten done, but it's going to be in the park aspects of what rules are what parks and what's allowed at what park. That's where you'll find that information.
Okay, honestly, it all became rather confusing because years ago, the park policies were separate. So anyway, it just got a little bit confusing. So I wasn't sure if they were actually in a chapter, if the park policy is just its own self-standing thing. So maybe you could just remind me.
The park policy that we have done since I've been here, and the one we've updated since I've been here has been essentially it's self-standing. We adopted it, we brought it to you guys, we've gone through it, we've laid out the rules for it, and then we're adopting it and we're currently making graphs for it, so it'll be online and available for people when they go on and they want to reserve a park. We're trying to have all the graphs and everything done before we open back up for business. So when people go online to do a reservation, they can see all of it right there. They don't even really, they could do it all online. They don't have to call anyone. That's what we're trying to get to.
Okay, I mean, this may be just my final question, and because I'm not a lawyer, but within our actual code, do we need to have a place where we reference that this park policy exists? Okay, thank you.
It's preference. If you guys want to, we can adopt it as a section of the code. I wouldn't mind once we get to the other side of overnight accommodations and get on the other side of COVID and get our budget squared away. I would very much like to go through and straighten up our code and add a lot of stuff to it. But we just haven't, with everything else we're doing and all the crises we've been dealing with. It's just not a high enough priority yet.
Okay, no, thanks. That just answers my question because I couldn't tell if there was a hole. Okay, thanks.
And Ronnie, if you'd like, when you and I meet and we talk about it, I'd show you what I'm looking to do and give you an idea of like what I think it should look like. It needs to have a lot more stuff in it than I think it currently has. It needs cleaned up a lot.
So thanks for those comments and questions. Anything further? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Sorry, apologies. I will call for the vote in order of people. Gosh, old habits are hard to break. Or I guess old process. Okay, I will call for the vote. So sorry, I just have to make sure I'm doing the right one. Okay, Ronnie.
Yes.
Mike,
Aye.
Tawny,
Aye.
Kalen,
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And we move on to item 9.3. And we say goodbye to Rachel.
I will say good night. Good luck.
Good night.
Okay, 9.3, approval of the 2019-2020 water meters bid to Meter Works Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $120,000. This is a briefing and possible action. I would entertain a motion on this agenda item. Kalen, I see your hand.
I move to award the 2019-2020 water meter bid to Meter Works Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $120,000.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank
Mike
you.
here.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion. Ronnie?
Just a quick question for Joel. Don't need to answer it now, but at some point, can you let us know? I know we budgeted for this already in the previous budget, but I know this is an essential thing and these things have a life expectancy. So as we get ready for the next budget, can you just kind of flag and make sure we're replacing enough? Just because that seems to be an important item.
No. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I will roll call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Thank you. Karen?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Kalen?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Wonderful. Motion passes 5-0. And on to 9.4, proposed resolution 19-2020, a resolution approving and an amended plat for Pear Tree Estates to delete a plat note requiring street improvements along Pear Tree Lane prior to development of parcel 2 of the subdivision. Briefing and possible action. Yes, Karen?
Mayor, I just was gonna say that there is a I'm not gonna vote on this, but I'm gonna still be in the room for participation, as there's a conflict of interest.
Oh, okay. So you're just saying you're going to recuse from voting
Yes.
and remain on the video
Yes.
and deliberate. Okay.
Mayor, can I
So-
ask really quick, Nora? I have Darcy and Lenore on the Zoom meeting. Is Valerie also one of the applicants?
No.
You don't need to answer.
I am not sure. I don't know if she's for this one or the next item, Valerie.
Lenore, do you know the answer to my question?
I don't.
Okay.
So
No.
maybe Darcy and Lenore. Darcy?
Okay. So in a regular city council meeting, we typically are, well, it's nice to have the applicants here if the council has any questions, but we'll just continue to proceed as we normally do in a regular city council meeting. So
Mayor, will you entertain a motion?
I just want to.
I move to approve City Council Resolution 19-2020, a resolution approving an amended plat for Pear Tree Estates to delete a plat note requiring street improvements along Pear Tree Lane prior to development of parcel 2 of the subdivision.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kalen, for the second. It looks
Oh,
like
I think I just shared my screen. Did I?
You did, but I don't think that
Okay.
we need that, Nora. Let's just wait.
This is slightly
What I was-
slightly revised from what was in your packet. It
Oh.
corrects the name. That's all it does. But I
Oh.
just wanted to show it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Council, questions or comments? And Nora, it's difficult for me to see everybody's picture. So unless anybody wants to keep looking at the document, I think we can pull it back down. Okay. Seeing no, oh, yep, Ronnie.
Okay, making sure I'm not muted. Nora, can you just, so we got extensive history and background in the packet on this. And the one thing I was just gonna ask you, if you could clarify is, beyond what I read in the packet, so it seems like, help me understand, like, do we know historically, like, why this property was asked to do this and some of the other ones around it weren't? Is that like an individual call that gets made every time? Should it be consistent, or does it not work that way?
It's not that it's an individual call that gets made every time. None of us, Summer was here, but the staff that was working on this now weren't here at the time, so we had to do some research, talk to Summer. Our understanding is that originally this parcel was illegally subdivided, and when the subdivision was fixed, as a part of the fixing of the illegal subdivision, these were criteria that were put on. I don't want to say as a penalty, but they were put on as a part of that process. And majority of the time when people go in for approvals or subdivisions, they don't go through that same process because they don't have the legal subdivision aspect of it. So this one was weird from go because the property owner at the time didn't follow proper procedure to get a subdivision. When they started trying to go do other things, it came to light that they had illegally subdivided it. Then they had to go back and go through that. So this one, I think, has just kind of been a mess from go.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
If
Nora?
I could add one thing. So they did dedicate sometime between 1998 and 2003. They did dedicate right away for Pear Tree Lane. So it's not so they're getting off scot-free. And that is what we also required of the adjacent subdivision, which is the D Tranter subdivision, required right of way from them. And that's often what we do if we need the right of way for future. But they're just asked that it be deleted.
That's good.
Well, I'm grateful for the patience of the applicants, and I'm grateful for the graceful resolve that is in front of us tonight. Unless there are any further questions or comments, I will call for the roll call vote. Tawny.
Aye.
Karen.
Abstain.
Sorry. Thank you. Mike.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Ronnie.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. To section 9.5, proposed resolution 20-2020, a resolution approving an amendment to the subdivision plat for properties located at 237, 239, 241, 243, and 245 West, 400 North Moab, from the Park West condominiums to the Park West townhomes. This is a briefing and possible action. Is there a motion? Ronnie?
Aye.
No.
Karen? Abstain. Sorry. Thank you.
Sorry, I think another mic was on. Move to approve. I can repeat that if you want, but since you just read it so perfectly, I will just move to approve.
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Something's happening.
What was that?
Sorry, I just let the applicant's representative in, and it looks like she was not muted but watching on YouTube, so there was some feedback. So Ronnie, it would be helpful if you would restate your motion.
Oh, yes, I can. I move to approve Resolution 20-2020, an amendment to the subdivision plat located at 237, 239, 241, 243, and 245 West, 400 North, Moab, Utah, 84532, from the Park West condominiums to the Park West townhomes. Oh, sorry, Moab Park West townhomes.
Thank you, Ronnie. Is there a second? Tawny? Thank you. Any comments? Questions? Okay, I will roll call the vote. Sorry. Kaylin,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Ronnie,
Aye.
Tawny,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Wonderful. Moving on to item 9.6 of our agenda. Proposed Resolution 2-2020, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Moab declaring certain property owned by the City of Moab as surplus. Is there a motion? And I just want to say that we've got 2 items. So I wasn't sure what kind of a motion y'all wanted to make, but I would entertain a motion while we are on 9.6 for however you want to deal with surplus. Is there a motion? Ronnie?
I can attempt to move to approve both if there is no objection. I move to approve Resolution 2-2020 as well as 16-2020, both resolutions of the governing body declaring city property as surplus.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Karen. Seeing none, I will call for the roll. I will roll call the vote. Kaylin,
Aye.
Ronnie,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Motion to approve both resolutions passes 5-0. We're doing all right. And we are on 9.8, proposed ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance to create a hotspot region coordinating committee for the City of Moab to include title, chapter, and section number. It's worth it to just point out that the action for tonight is confirming the criteria as stated here in this ordinance. And while we're looking to pass this, we should also consider setting a date for the creation of the committee. So let's make sure we do that before we move from this agenda item. But is there a motion? I would entertain a motion.
I'm working on it. Let's see.
Kalen has his hand up.
I move to adopt ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance to create the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee for the City of Moab to include title, chapter, and section number.
Thank you. Kalen, is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. I'll take Karen's second. She raised her hand. Discussion. Ronnie?
I just didn't know, since this is a committee, it's not a board or anything, but does it need language that talks about what constitutes a quorum or not necessary?
Not necessary. You can obviously reference back to state code, but normally when we set these boards up, all we're doing is doing the basic framework to how to set them. And you guys can change this however you guys want. This is kind of just pulled out of the resolution, and then it's just using basic language, how we set up any committee. If you wanted to change how the positions are, if you wanted to change the time frame, we just tried to match what we felt as a staff, what we felt the guidelines were going forward with what we're trying to do. Obviously, if there's any changes you guys want to see, feel free to make them as a part of the motion and we'll incorporate them into the document. When we set this next week with the appointments, The county meets next Tuesday on their meeting, so we're assuming that they'll appoint their people. We would like to meet by next Tuesday to appoint our people, so going into next week, we have everyone set up and we could possibly have a meeting next week. And we will have a board and we will have that board adopt bylaws of kind of how they want all that to transpire going forward right out the gate. So we can incorporate that into this document and let that stand there, or we can allow them through bylaws to kind of do it that way. Genuinely let the boards do it, but we can do it either way.
I'm fine with letting the board do it. My only other question was in the code, I just didn't know if there was text missing. There's when you get to the powers and duties, there's a number 3 listed, but no text. So I just didn't know if we misnumbered there or if there's text somebody had wanted in there that's missing.
My guess is Carly and I were firing stuff back and forth and we were doing track changes and we were accepting them. My guess is when I accepted the last round, it just didn't delete it out and I just didn't catch it.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Anything else? Then I will roll call this vote. Kaylin,
Aye.
Tawny,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Ronnie.
Aye.
Vote passes 5-0. And shall we set the date for the next meeting? The special meeting to select the committee? Before we move on. Knowing that the county is going to meet next Tuesday and likely they'll select their members at that time. Do you want to meet before on Tuesday or after Tuesday?
I'd like to do it. Sorry, Mayor, may I?
Yes, yes.
It would be great to do it before because I think there was hope that the meeting with the committee would happen very soon after the council meeting. Oh, I'd love.
Okay, so let's, do you want Carmella? Oh gosh, shall we have Carmella do a doodle poll for Thursday and Friday?
That's fine.
Sure.
Or do we want to set it tonight? Because we could try to set it tonight.
You can just throw something out there. I don't leave the house much, so.
Friday morning.
What do you all think about Friday at noon?
Can we go earlier than noon? We go Friday at 11?
What about Friday at 11?
You guys picked the one time I've got to be in the house because we're selling Bonnie's long arm machine and there are people coming to pick it up and I have to help them get out at 9 o'clock. So any other time would be fine with me.
How about Thursday at 11?
Be wonderful.
How about Thursday at 11?
No,
No.
because I'm still at work and
How about Thursday at noon?
Yeah, Thursday noon.
I leave at noon. I can be home a little bit after noon.
How about Thursday at 1?
Yeah, that's fine.
Everybody, Thursday at 1 o'clock?
Sounds good to me.
Fantastic. That gives us 24-hour summer. That should give you 24 hours to notice and create the calendar invite for us. Let's go ahead and do the, let's do a comment. I don't know what we should do here. I don't know what I should say here. I think what I want to just encourage the council to do is consider, who you want, and then also, yeah.
Okay, and we'll also at that meeting, I don't know if we formally have to adopt it, but if we could come up with a list with the UDOT regional transportation plan at that time, that would be great.
Oh, so then we should notice those 2 items.
Yeah, and I have to check into how they form that one to see if we have to put those on by resolution or if we can just appoint them. Like that one may not be an agenda item, but if you could, at the bare minimum, get me a list of, have a list of names, 6 people we want to put on there.
Well, let's notice it regardless.
Yeah, I'll put it on there, but I'll figure out what the process needs to be compliant.
So
Okay, is this enough time for summer?
I'll be drafting all of the documents for it, so I think we can turn it around by tomorrow at 11. We'll have to get busy in the morning tomorrow. We can do that. I can do that. And so Summer can help. I can help Summer get the agenda. She can help me get my paperwork done. We're gonna be a solid team right there. We'll get it done.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, Ronnie first and then Karen.
Just a quick question. So since I'm supposed to put my thinking cap on about people, can someone just remind me, is this supposed to be all council members or could be staff as well, or a community person, just so I know what I'm supposed to be.
On both the transportation plan stakeholder meeting and on the hotspot, it can be anyone, but I would, on the transportation plan, because the county's getting to get to pick theirs, and we prefer they be from the city, so we keep our spots here and they have their spots there, but there's no requirement that you do that either way. So they're wide open. I wouldn't put more than 2 of you on the UDOT regional stakeholder plan meeting, because we don't want to create a quorum in a different scenario, different problem. On the hotspot funding committee, it doesn't matter. We're going to public notice those meetings, we're going to record them. And so you're wearing a different hat altogether in both of them anyways, but I would probably try and avoid creating a quorum issue on the regional planning meeting. On the other one, I wouldn't really worry about it because it's a separate body altogether and we're noticing it, recording it, and everything's happening that way anyways. The stakeholder one is not a public meeting. It's for help them get information and how to prepare their documents and what they're doing. So.
Okay, Thursday at 1 o'clock. That's a tentative meeting date, correct? Time.
Yes.
Thank you.
yeah, so Mayor and Joel, I'm just to be clear with the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee, we as a council are just picking 4 members.
Correct.
Okay. And then the county's going to pick their 3.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Okay, then we're moving on to our final agenda item.
1 second, Mayor. The way we envisioned when we drafted it and the way it was just adopted was that we thought 3 would be off the county council, 3 would be off the city council, and then the 4th that our council would pick would be a member of the community.
Yeah.
That's how there's no requirement that that's what it is, but that's just what we were hearing going back and forth. That's from county representatives and from city representatives. That's how we felt we were being directed by councils to do it that way. There's no requirement that you do it that way. I'm just giving you the insight as to like why we drafted it the way we drafted it. It wasn't that we thought that was best. It was that we felt that that's how we were being directed.
Yeah, and that was the impression that I had too, for sure. So, I mean, that makes sense.
Okay. Awesome. You all look frozen, so I'm not sure how good my connection is. Can you still hear me?
We're still here. I can hear you.
Great. Okay, well then we're on our last agenda item, approval of the bills. Tawny, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to approve the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $764,000, $764,016.14.
Thank you. Second.
I will second.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any discussion, Tawny?
Nope. I don't have them in front of me. I gave them back. So
thank you for doing that shuffle. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for being accommodating. And I will roll call vote. Kaylin.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Karen. Karen.
She's muted.
Aye. And Ronnie.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all for an amazing electronic meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, Just 1 second. I realized Carly and I had talked earlier of her potentially presenting information from UDOT during our last agenda item. And we moved through that. And I am so sorry to do this to all of us as we thought we were done here. But Carly, I'm so sorry. Would you like to still report on UDOT?
We definitely can, or it can wait till Thursday. We're just proposing the framework and the schedule for the coordinating committee, so it's appropriate to talk about it then.
Why don't you just let us know real quick what you're going to present?
Do you want to see the framework, or we're just an overview? It's just a quick schedule that we've developed for the framework that we're supposed to present to you for the resolution that you passed on March 24th. So I would love to get input on it. So we're happy to talk about it on Thursday. Nothing has to be decided tonight, so it can wait, definitely.
Could we share that framework as an attachment for the agenda item?
Absolutely, and so you have time to review it too. Sure, that works.
Okay, I'm so sorry. How out of order am I?
You should be. You're that teacher right now who was going to let us all go home, and then you let that one kid raise his hand, and then you call on him.
I'm so sorry.
That kid's going to get beat up on the way home, man. That's what you just did.
I did.
Okay, I don't even know do I have a motion and a second to adjourn here? I do?
We had two motions, but
You had a motion from Kaylin, but I didn't hear a second.
I'll
Who's
second.
gonna second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Sorry about that. That was awful of me. Everyone
Thank you.
have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
job.
you.